Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Films and Stuff podcast. I'm Ethan, brought to you by Pete. Hey, Pete, what's up today?
Not much. How are you?
I'm good. I think this episode is not going to be one of our patented rambles, but definitely we've got two big topics.
That's right. We're going to be laser focused this time.
Laser focused. Speaking of lasers.
Exactly. Pew, pew.
Yeah. We're going to talk about the Acolyte, the first season, possibly further seasons to come.
I hope not.
Pete's already given his review.
Super skip.
And we'll be talking about season 4 of The Boys. Both of these seasons have now ended. Let's review. I know you want to jump into Acolyte. I mean, you're wearing your Star Wars t-shirt today. I told you last night that I ordered some Star Wars books to refresh myself on canon.
I'm so happy.
Having watched the Acolyte, what is the problem?
Where do we start?
Let me ask a pre-question. Do you think that there's people that watch this show that don't think that there's a problem with this show?
Yeah, they're called morons. That's right. I said it. That's my hot take. If you like this show and you think that there's no problems with it, you're an idiot.
Let's divide this into Star Wars fans or people knowledgeable about Star Wars and non-Star Wars fans that would watch this, right? It's on Disney Plus. Let's say you've got no idea about the Star Wars universe. Like, you kind of know that there's a Luke Skywalker, there's a Darth Vader, there's some robots. You saw Daisy Ridley in the most recent ones with Adam Driver. So you've got like some Star Wars awareness, right? You're not completely oblivious. And this is like kind of within the Star Wars universe. You watch it. Do any of those people walk away saying, wow, that was pretty good. I really liked it?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. For a non-Star Wars fan, this is empty calories, kind of some type of weird sci-fi space odyssey, but based in the past. I don't think anyone comes away saying, wow, that was really great. I need more Star Wars in my life. I think they say that was kind of a weird sci-fi series, right?
And I mean, we'll talk about it, but like not even well done.
Okay. So those are the non-Star Wars fans. Like, there's nothing compelling enough to kind of keep them into this, right? Now, for the Star Wars fans, I think this is just like an abomination.
Oh my
with
God.
a few redeeming qualities that we need to be a little bit objective about.
Okay.
I thought the action sequences
Fair enough.
were actually pretty decent. In the season finale, the fight scenes were actually pretty solid.
Okay.
Not Star Wars-like, but I thought that they were pretty solid. I thought the scene where, and this leads into a problem, Osha or May, or I don't even know who's who anymore, her lightsaber changed.
Oh, yeah, the lightsaber bleeding.
Kind of cool.
Not just cool, like, because now you're going to be reading the books.
Yeah.
You're going to see that. You're absolutely right. Pretty badass.
Yeah. A little bit of, if we're really trying to find compliments, they showed us a little bit into the Jedi, let's call it bureaucracy, and their relationship with the Senate. That was something. Apart from those things that I think were actually not bad, this whole series, I think, has been a disaster. And it's been a disaster of souls making. And as a character, I really, really dislike his character and everything that this whole series has centered around based on his horrible decision making and failure to acknowledge that he kind of jumped the gun years ago and set off this pathetic chain of events.
And even fundamentally, forget about the Star Wars of it all for a moment. Yeah. At no point was an expectation subverted from the outset. Remember, 4 or 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, when we first saw that Osha started the fire, or May. I can't even remember which is the good one, which is the bad one now.
I know. Because they keep switching, which is a problem.
Well, that's another thing. But yeah, so when the quote unquote bad one started the fire, we both looked at each other and said, well, that's obviously not going to be the cause of everyone's death, right? Like we both said, there's no way. Like we're going to have another flashback sequence where we're going to learn that somebody else propagated the fire.
Yeah.
But that's not what the case was. It was her. It was just like when Khmer comes out as the Sith apprentice.
Yeah.
And we were just like, they're making it so
Oh my
obvious that it's
God.
him. It can't possibly be him.
I know.
And it was him.
It was such a boring reveal. Like
All
everyone was.
things.
I know.
On a fundamental non-Star Wars of it all, for those people who are not fans, that's not even exciting. None of these things were exciting because they were kind of holding our hands as if the problem was they treated their viewers like morons.
Yeah.
And that's where this show lost me, amongst many other places.
In terms of those two events, right, which are supposed to be, those are supposed to be kind of like the two things that were supposed to be shocks, right? Which is who is the Sith, the stranger, right?
Yeah,
that's supposed to be a big reveal. And then what really happened in the fire? That's supposed to be a big reveal, right?
Yeah. Oh, and that which was the Jedi Master that was theoretically that he was the Padawan of, which again, not a huge shocker given that bald green alien, what's her face? The one who looks a lot like Nebula from...
It's Vernestra. I just call her Vern.
It became super clear to me that it was her pupil that was Khmer.
I have to say, I didn't really pick up on it, or maybe I wasn't just like focused on it. I think the number one thing that confused me in this whole series is I cannot keep the twins straight. And part of the reason I can't keep them straight, first of all, they had to make them identical twins, which always, leads to potential complications. And two, there was never a good one and a bad one. They kept switching. Good is bad, bad is good. Osha's with a stranger, then it's May with a stranger, then it's Osha with a stranger. It was hard to follow and no good reason for like all this switching. I wish that they would have kind of reimagined the story because this isn't canon, right? This is a made up.
So this is officially canon now.
Yeah, but it wasn't based on anything else. There was no May and there was no Osha,
this is
right?
a retelling of a story. This is a wholly new whatever.
So I mean, it would have been more interesting to me if there was someone who was force sensitive and one of them who was not, and you saw the battle and the tension between those two, right? Whereas this story was kind of based on the black magic and the witches, and where does that fit into the whole thing?
Here's the other problem, is we've kind of seen these themes in the past. Okay? So first of all, and I can't believe I'm going to say this because generally speaking, the prequel trilogy has not necessarily been treated very positively, but I think the arrogance and the fall of the Jedi, right, has been done better in episodes 1, 2, and 3 than they tried to do in this show. We've already seen that before. And then the idea that Osha and May were born of the Force. That's basically what this is, right? Is that they were born of the Force and they were so powerful in the Force that they came out as two is kind of like what we saw with Luke and Leia, except we had twins.
Yeah.
Okay. And the second thing was being born of the Force, kind of what Anakin Skywalker's deal is, right?
Yeah.
He didn't really have a dad. We didn't know anything about his parental lineage, nothing like that. There was some allusion to the fact that he was kind of like a virgin birth.
Yeah.
Kind of. Look, I'm not saying this is what isn't right. I've made this clear many times before. I'm a big Star Wars fan, but I'm nowhere near in that elite level of Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
All of these themes we've kind of seen before, and we've seen it done better.
Much better.
So I don't understand on a fundamental basis what the purpose of this show is. Because if you're trying to show that the Jedi are not infallible, guess what? We've already seen that story. We've
Yeah.
seen the fall of the Jedi. We've seen the fall of a Jedi. We've even seen the fall of previous Jedi with
Yeah.
Dooku, right? Dooku
Yeah.
used to be a Jedi Master that became a Sith.
Yeah.
All that stuff has kind of been done before. So what is the point of this show?
I felt this was so diminishing towards Jedi.
Ah,
And not that the Jedi need to be on this pedestal and protected in every show, but I felt that it really, I thought, made two negative impressions. One, it really made them look like bureaucratic, cover their asses, bad decision-making people. And two, it didn't show them as particularly skilled fighters.
no, not
I
at
mean,
all.
whether it's Osha or May, I still cannot keep them straight. I mean, at the very beginning in the first episodes, they killed 3 Jedi. And this is, for me, a stretch at the beginning, right? It wasn't the stranger who did it. It was kind of like the stranger's Padawan, who is now strong enough to kill 3 Jedi. That strikes me as very, very unrealistic, unless we're just saying, look, a Jedi doesn't necessarily have to be a strong fighter. They can kind of do anyone. But Carrie-Anne Moss was an extraordinary fighter, right? She was very, very powerful. The fact that she was dispatched so summarily, disappointing. Yord, well, that was in a fight scene. I mean, he was dispatched summarily. Torben, I mean, it was just very disappointing to me that are the Jedi's good fighters or bad fighters?
Are they so weak-willed that they can be taken over because one of them
Yeah.
is homesick and misses Jedi food?
I know.
Like, what does he want?
I
A
know.
Jedi churro?
I know.
Like, what is this nonsense? I miss my Coruscant dumplings.
Yeah.
So I'm really
I know.
I'm gonna sabotage this entire mission.
Yeah.
It's so
And
weak-willed. How do you become
I know.
you can't be a Padawan
Yeah.
and miss these kinds of things. It's so, if
Yeah.
you compare, quote unquote, Obi-Wan Kenobi in episode 1, where he was Qui-Gon's Padawan, to any of these guys, there's a world of difference.
I think the whole show, maybe if you look at the totality of our little complaints, the totality of our complaints, I feel, is coming under the heading of it's very inconsistent. Tell me what are the rules and I'll buy into the rules. But it's really difficult when you're saying Jedis are great. They can control their emotions. They're so disciplined, except for this. And the whole thing I thought was just really poorly executed. Even like when you saw like the opening, when you have the flashback, and this was kind of like episode 6 or 7, and it shows why Carrie-Anne Moss and Sol and the other dude were on the planet to begin with. They're just grabbing like handfuls of moss randomly, putting it into like some machine and pushing a button. And then they see like the big thing in the middle of well, obviously this is what you're looking for. Why are you grabbing like a handful of moss and putting it in like you're testing like soil samples? I mean, you're a Jedi. Come on, guys. Like you don't have robots that can do this automated. You can't say that we got this beacon. We're looking for it. Like the whole thing was just like so pathetic. Like they're in the forest.
They have a spaceship. They couldn't see the whole thing from space.
Yeah. I mean, come on. We got this huge beacon or something and we tracked it down to this planet. Let's just keep putting moss into like this PCU that we carry on our shoulders. And let's just see if that's going to tell us where the thing is. The whole thing was just so weird and stupid. Then Sol mucks the whole thing up, which we've seen like not just once, not just twice, like 3 different times he went to this witch's place, which was a whole weird thing that I don't even want to get into the black magic because that super confused me. And he's just like convinced that he's got to like save these 2 girls for no good reason whatsoever, destroys everyone in the process. And then even like 20 years later, he's still taking responsibility for it. He's still like, well, I was right. I had to at least save one of them.
No, and then on the flip side, with the witches, she's already decided she was going to let Osha go. But at the beginning of that confrontation, she makes it like, I'm going to make sure that we battle. What the hell?
Yeah.
Well, like she was just like, oh, you should never have come here. Well, if you've already decided you're going to let her go, why have a combative stance at all?
I agree.
And then Kalnaka getting her mind taken over. I mean, what on earth? Like everywhere, it just seems like everyone is a bunch of incompetent, unable to communicate moron.
Yeah. I thought the whole thing was disappointing because I felt like really the rules kept changing on me in terms of what's possible and what's not possible. If you look back at that original event that kickstarted this whole thing, the whole thing was avoidable.
Oh, 100%.
And then at the end, then they make it really ugly where Venestra has to blame Sol as kind of like this rogue
Which
Jedi.
I think you saw coming in the past as well.
Who killed himself. Then she says he killed himself. And she does all this, covers up the whole problem. Ugh. And then to really, really just insult you and I,
Yeah.
then they have to bring Yoda at the end and implicate him in this disaster.
Yeah.
No reason for that at all.
None whatsoever. Speaking of the cameo, what did you think of the Sith Master cameo?
So I thought this was very good. And this started me on my journey of actually not knowing. His name is Darth Plagueis, right?
Darth Plagueis. Yeah, that's right.
So I didn't know enough about that story. So that got me down the rabbit hole of kind of like investigating who the original Siths were.
Right.
And then as I messaged you last night, I've actually ordered some of the Star Wars books because I'm a little bit light in this area.
So happy to hear that, by the way.
In terms of how this played itself out with, the two Sith Lords, that obviously led up to Palpatine, right?
Yeah.
So I need to educate myself a little bit more on that. But as a concept, I think that's a very, very good focus of the show, is to enlighten us more about those things that we didn't have any information about, and now obviously lead to, bigger things. Rather than to take a story that didn't need to be told, that diminished the Jedi, that was very, very complicated to follow, and focus on that.
So here's my problem with that. First of all, it was a blink or you'll miss it moment with Darth Plagueis.
That's true.
Second, for those people who are not fans of Star Wars, everyone is going to have a big, huh?
Yeah, who's that?
Who the heck is that guy?
Yeah.
3, for people who are Star Wars fans, I would say 60 to 70% of them will be like, who is that guy? Is that Darth Plagueis?
Yeah.
And I think only a very small number of people would be like, oh my God, that's Darth Plagueis. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I also think that because it was like literally a 10-second cameo, not even 10 seconds, maybe a 5-second cameo in the finale. Yeah. I sneakingly suspect they did that only as a way to convert other fans who would then say, well, now I need to see more of this show.
Yeah, I thought that, and showing the back of Yoda.
Oh, totally.
Is kind of the Star Wars playbook under Kathleen Kennedy, which is, let's put something together that's not well thought out, not very coherent. We have a lot of criticism, but then you know what? We'll throw something into the ring at the very, very end to give the people what they want, and drag this on for another season, right? That seems to be so much of their playbook that it's just really, really insulting.
It's so cheap because what you've done is effectively, and I didn't fall for it, because even now, I'm telling you right now, I think they're better off cutting their losses and not making a season 2. But if they get a season 2, it's going to be because the finale's numbers are going to be huge, because everyone is going to be talking about how Darth Plagueis made his first on-camera appearance. And guess what? We're seeing Yoda at his youngest, even younger than when he was in the prequels. I just think it's such a cheap way to do it. And it's not well earned. It's not earned at all. It's just terrible.
No. I really think that there's a better story to be told here.
100%. And I like what you're saying. In fact, I haven't thought about what the better story is, but immediately I already like where your instincts are going, which is to say, hey, instead of focusing on this Osha May dyad or whatever, this creature born of the Force,
Yeah.
Maybe you have that, but you make them the MacGuffin, and let's talk about Darth Plagueis and how he
Yeah.
wants to go after them,
Yeah. I
right?
agree.
And
Yeah.
he's like this mysterious Sith figure who's
Yeah.
after the twins because he thinks that, oh my God, they're born of the Force, which means they could
Yeah.
be the ultimate Sith master.
Yes.
And then how cool would it be that if one of them becomes the Sith master because they're kind of like the embodiment of the dark side, and the other
Yeah.
becomes this awesome kick-ass Jedi because she's the embodiment of the light
Yes.
side, and they take
Yeah.
each other out because,
Yes.
again, guess what? We know where the story ends. In 100
Yep.
years from now, Darth Plagueis will have won. Palpatine will
Right.
be his successor. Kamir's
Yeah.
not in the picture. Osha's not in the picture. May's not in the picture. No one from the Jedi Academy's in the picture except for Yoda. What is this focus on these guys? Who gives a crap about these
Yeah.
guys?
I think that's actually the right way to approach it, is that let's take all this witchcraft out of it,
Ah, awful.
which added nothing whatsoever. It was super confusing. Just say, look, it's this group that's very, very isolated on this planet. We previously thought there was no life. Now we found the Virgins. We went, we investigated it. We found the two twins. One is Force positive, right? So have it be Soul misdiagnosed them, or they played a trick on him or something,
Oh
right?
my God, how good is
Right?
that? He ends up training the Sith.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the dark side ends up taking the light side because that's
Yes.
all they have left.
Yes.
And it's about how, and oh my God, that's so good. That's brilliant.
How is, I just don't understand how many
That's
people are
brilliant.
employed at Disney and no one could look at this script and be like, hold on.
That's brilliant. Oh my God, because then all of a sudden, you have a Sith Lord who has the meditation ability, who has the training.
Then the Jedi really has culpability that they said, wait a second. Sorry,
Yes.
we actually trained the wrong one. And it's all because Soul got confused
Because
or
Soul's
they
an
did this
idiot.
switch. Yes.
And we have to cover this up because otherwise we as the police force lose our
Yep.
credibility.
Yep.
So then we can pin it on Soul.
Yeah.
And that's when you can have this really badass sequence where her lightsaber goes from blue to
Yes.
red. It bleeds,
Yes.
right? And then on the other side, you can have the same thing where this Sith Lord is just like, why am I doing this? My heart's not in
Yep.
this. I'm not a bad guy. This is really wrong. And she
Right.
purifies the Kyber crystal. We can see her being the first one to do it the other way, and it goes
Yeah.
from red to
Yes.
white or to blue or to green or
Yeah.
whatever. Oh my God. And then they take each other out,
Yeah.
right? And then it ends with Plagueis looking for another Sith
Yeah.
apprentice.
Yes.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, cool. Hats off. That's fantastic. Good idea.
But again, what makes me so frustrated, and I think we're both frustrated, is that it took a very complicated, there's complicated stories that are compelling
Yeah.
and they're just complicated. You're like, that was really hard to explain on screen, but we love the idea of what you tried to do. This is a complicated idea for no purpose of being complicated. They've added all these other elements that they don't need.
Ah,
They don't need the women to be witches and have all this weird black magic and taking over minds and everything. They could have been a very, very simple, peaceful people that happened to have Force positive daughters. And it was really unclear where this group came from or what they did. But, the Jedi found them and came across them and wanted to, train, the Force positive daughters who happened to be identical twins. All very simple. We remove all this nonsense about the witchcraft and about, the mind melts and about, the fire and who caused it and who escaped and why are things crumbling? It's a fire or an earthquake. Like, you remove all of this nonsense, right? The soul awful decision making, and you streamline the story into something that's actually more compelling. Where's the team though? What is the purpose of having, are there so many writers that they can't agree on something, so they've got to come up with something more complicated?
one of the things you're absolutely right about is that the whole thing of Star Wars has effectively been, this is a story about good versus evil.
Yes.
right? It's the light
Yes.
side versus the dark side.
That's
you can
it.
make the story behind that complicated, but the
Yes.
ultimate premise is good guys versus bad guys. And
Yes.
both sides have laser swords and they're going to fight with each other.
Yes.
And it's about the balance that you need the good to have the bad. You need the bad to have the good. That's it. It's nothing more complicated. I think another one of the hallmarks of Kathleen Kennedy's reign has been, let's throw out a simple premise and let's make movies and let's make series based on things that we think on paper look and sound really cool and build around that, which is not the right way to make a movie or a TV series. You should have a good premise and build around that. I don't know if this is true, but like apparently one of the myths behind the green lighting of the Solo movie
Yeah.
was, you know that scene where he's asked what his name is? And he says, my name's Han. He's like, yeah, what's your last name? He's like, I don't have one. It's just, I'm just one. Like, I don't have a family. It's just me.
Right.
I'm just one. And they're like, okay, Solo.
Yeah.
And apparently one executive at LucasArts liked that idea so much, they greenlit the movie on that basis of that one scene. And it's not even a good scene.
I mean, they're writing around set pieces, which is what you should never do, right?
Which is what you should never do. And if you want to do that, by the way, then be prepared to make a movie like Michael Bay does, because that's basically Michael Bay's filmmaking, right? Which is, how do we make a series of set pieces and loosely tie that up into a movie? And that's how you get the Transformers.
Yeah.
Star Wars is not the Transformers series.
No.
Ah, it's just so disappointing. It's awful.
I know. Now we're stuck with this. We're stuck with a story that we don't want. We're stuck with characters that we didn't ask for. And we're stuck with the historical Jedi being very, very weak and very bad decision makers. I'm more disappointed for what it said for the Jedi, where, you know, we're just preconditioned, I think, to hold them in high regard. You know, they're supposed to be better decision makers. They're not supposed to be emotional. They're supposed to be objective. They're supposed to always try to find the right thing to do, even and not disrupt their environment, right? Yeah. They're not out there to save every single person. They're not Spider-Man or Batman, who's like this vigilante who's out there to fix everything, right? They're there to keep balance. So it's really disappointing. I just dislike the Soul character. I'm really sorry. I'm sure he's a great actor, but like, I really dislike that Soul character and what he's done to kind of like muck up this whole thing. And again, the set pieces, as good as the fight scenes were, I thought this whole thing that took place in a very fake looking cave with like the bridge collapsing, with Soul could only hold one of them up,
which is also stupid.
Oh, gosh, I mean, we've seen that in like so many movies, right? Where someone's holding two people, one in each hand, dangling off a cliff, right? And it's like, oh, I can't hold you both, and you've got to make this decision on which one to save. And I mean, just
what is the point of having the Force if you can't save both? Honestly,
I agree. I mean, like, it makes him look weak. I mean, he wasn't like a young Padawan who's like, oh, I'm just discovering my skills. You know, I could only focus on one. Ugh. The whole thing is just, really, really poorly done. I think everyone kind of knows what we've rated this. I've put this as a skip. It's impossible for me to tell anyone that this show is worth watching.
Just terrible. Just terrible.
Do you think there's going to be a season 2?
Yeah, I think so. I hope not. I really hope that they're just like, this is too bad. We're not going to do it.
Again, let's use the mom test. My mom would watch. I mean, I don't think she will realistically, but there's probably some alternative universe where my mom could watch House of the Dragon, either by accident or otherwise, right?
Or maybe she just joins you on the couch while you're watching it.
Or The Bear. I can see no scenario or no universe out there where my mom would watch even one episode of The Acolyte.
No.
Or if she watched one, would be like, I don't get it. I'm not going to
I'm turning this off. Yeah, I'm not going to continue.
Yeah. The Bear, for all its vulgarity and horribleness, right? My mom could at least be like, oh, I kind of like their food, like that's interesting. Like I kind of want to, I like the kitchen scenes, she could watch a second episode, not in this universe, mind you, but in like some alternative universe. Yes. But I can't imagine that alternative universe where she's watching The Acolyte.
Yeah.
All right.
So let's shift gears quickly
Let's
to
shift gears.
something that we actually liked. We liked it a lot.
Oh, yeah.
The Boys.
Season 4 has completed. It's in the books. What do you think? After watching season 4, was that the season we needed? Are you excited for season 5?
Yeah, it ended the way I figured it would, not in terms of the story, but in terms of overall, let's say, structure.
Yeah.
Because we know that the next season is the last season. So the stakes are at an all-time high within the show. And of course, as of the time of this recording, I don't know if you saw this, but they had to change the name of the episode.
Yep, it was called The Assassination.
It was called The Assassination, and they changed it because, of course, of what happened in the US. So that's why the stakes couldn't be higher.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like season 4 gave me a lot of what I like about The Boys. It's not my favorite season. I think that's probably 2 or 3, but it definitely gave us a lot of what we wanted and a lot of what we expected, from The Boys. Probably some of my favorite episodes were towards the end. And I thought the season finale was actually quite good, right?
Yeah.
You saw Homelander say he's going to chase everybody down, and you actually saw kind of everybody get apprehended in a way, which I thought was a very compelling end to the season, right?
Yeah.
Starlight gets her powers back. She flies away. Huey is taken. You see Frenchie taken. You see Kimiko saying her first words.
It's super interesting. I'm with you. I think through the first 5 or 6 episodes, I would have said this was a really strong mooch. I don't know if I would have gone into must subscribe territory, but then the last couple episodes really took it over the edge.
Yeah. Sad to see the vice president, taken apart. But
yeah.
So what is the state of play?
Spoiler
here, right?
alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. So what's the state of play here? The state of play is that Vought is absolutely run by Homelander.
Yeah.
Firecracker seems a little bit, she's got some health issues, like she's either going to die or she's going to be in the outs, right? Sister Sage is back in. And then the 2 goons are the replacement Black Noir and the Deep. Season 1, when he met Starlight, remember he was very rapey?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he kind of turned into the good guy, misunderstood, stupid Kevin. And then in this season, he turned into just an outright assassin goon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not my favorite look for him, but that's where we are with this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess there's an open question about Ashley, not the Ashley who is killed, but the Ashley who used to be the CEO.
Yeah. She's got V in her. So what happens to her?
Yeah. What happens to her? A good guy or a bad guy? A-Train and I guess Maeve is still out there.
Yeah.
Those 2 are probably on the side of the boys now. We haven't really seen them, and Maeve wasn't in season 4 at all.
Yeah.
A-Train we didn't see in the last few episodes. So it's kind of Maeve, A-Train, Starlight, possibly the new Ashley. And then we're not sure about how much time. Butcher, I guess, is still going to die. Soldier Boy is back. We didn't know that. I think it's going to be a good season 5, but I think it's also time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
One of the themes I didn't really love in season 4 was that there was a lot of mirroring kind of the current political climate in the US.
Yeah.
The fact that they did it kind of so blatantly and a little bit tongue in cheek, I think is the only thing that made it palatable. But generally, I wish they would have kind of minimized that more and focused on, the real thing.
Yeah.
So that's probably coming in 2025, right?
I mean, I doubt very much that they've already started filming.
Do you think even 2025 is realistic?
Maybe. We're halfway through 2024 now.
Yeah.
Maybe? I don't know.
When season 2 of Gen V coming?
Honestly, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about Gen V. Sorry, as a tangent, as of the time of this recording this morning, Halo got canceled at Paramount Plus.
Is that I mean, what took it so long to put that out of its misery? Have you watched season 2 of Halo?
I have. It was much better than season 1, but still pretty bad.
I don't know if I can bring myself to do it.
You don't have to. I have, and I'll tell you, it was fine, but it wasn't great.
I mean, season 1 was so awful. So awful. I don't think I can, it's like a relationship that's gone bad. And like, it's like, you can't come back from that.
Yeah.
You just cannot come back from that. Yuck. Folks, please, let's get some feedback on what we thought about Acolyte. I'd love for someone to disagree with us and present a compelling case as to why Acolyte deserves a season 2. Tell us why we're wrong in trashing it. And tell us what you thought about season 4 of The Boys. And are you excited for season 5 of The Boys?
Yeah, what do you think is going to happen?
Pete, spit it out. What's our YouTube jazz, our social media creds? Where can everyone reach out to us and give their opinion?
So in the meantime, why don't you reach out to us? Tweet at us at F&S Podcast, on Instagram at Films and Stuff Podcast. And as always, leave a comment below this video, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and all that YouTube jazz.
Appreciate it, everybody. Pete, appreciate you. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week on the next episode of the Films and Stuff Podcast. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.